A woman disappeared on her way to work. Witnesses reported hearing her screams and saw two unknown people getting into her car. The next day, the police discovered the car had been burned, but the woman was nowhere to be found. Shortly after, a woman approached the detectives, claiming that a vision had come to her, showing her the location where the victim's body was. Within hours, they found her body in a remote area outside the city. In this video, we'll tell you the story of Melanie Uribe and explore whether this case was truly solved by a psychic. 31-year-old Melanie Uribe worked as a nurse in the Californian city of Burbank, located near Hollywood. She was raising her 8-year-old son alone. Her colleagues and acquaintances described her as a responsible employee and a diligent mother, which made it all the more worrying when, on December 15, 1980, Melanie failed to show up for her night shift at the hospital without any prior warning. After waiting for some time, the chief doctor called her home phone, but there was no answer. It was very strange. If the girl wasn't at work or at home, where could she have gone? Her colleagues didn't hesitate and contacted the police. They immediately filed a missing persons report, and a search began. The next morning, detectives made a grim discovery. They found Melanie's burned-out pickup truck and a nurse's uniform nearby. Soon, they managed to locate the first witnesses. According to them, they had seen a pickup truck drive past a quiet village. Two men were standing by the road, waiting for the green traffic light, and it looked like they had forced a woman into the vehicle as they heard her screams. Unfortunately, the witnesses could not provide much more detail, and the police were left with only a vague description of the suspects. The search for Melanie continued, but detectives had no solid evidence to go on. This went on for 2 days until December 17th, when a woman named Smith contacted the police. She claimed that a vision had come to her, showing her the approximate location where the missing person might be found. Her story went like this. She had heard about Melanie's disappearance on the radio while at work. The report mentioned that the police were searching houses near the area where her car had been found. At that moment, Smith said, she suddenly had an image in her mind. She saw an open area, a canyon with winding roads, sparse bushes, and distant hills. In front of her there was a path leading into the bushes where, despite not being able to see it clearly, she was certain that Melanie's body was lying there, her uniform visible. This vision, Smith claimed, was so clear and bright, almost like a movie scene. Despite not being able to pinpoint the exact location, she was sure she could find the place. The police were skeptical, as self-proclaimed psychics often reached out with false or useless information. However, Smith's case stood out for a couple of reasons. First, she did not consider herself a psychic and had never experienced visions before that day. Second, she held a prestigious position at an aerospace company, with high-level security clearance to sensitive state secrets. This made the police take her word seriously, although they were still unsure whether to trust her claim about the vision. Without much else to go on, the police decided to investigate the area Smith had described. They gave her a map and asked her to show the location. She pointed to an area on the outskirts of the San Fernando Valley near Lopez Canyon. Despite doubts, the police sent a team to investigate, though they were concerned that searching based on a psychic's vision might not be taken seriously. Smith, undeterred, decided to go to the area on her own, taking several family members, including her daughter. As they drove along the canyon, she allegedly felt the presence of Melanie and realized that the body was at the bottom of the canyon. When they saw fresh tire tracks, Smith believed they were related to the missing person. As they drove further, her daughter noticed something in the bushes. They stopped the car and approached. To their horror, they discovered Melanie's body. The only clothing visible was the shoes that belonged to a nurse's uniform, which were sticking out from the bushes. Smith immediately called the police, who arrived at the scene and confirmed that the body was indeed Melanie's. Medical experts confirmed her identity, and it was revealed that she had been brutally beaten and assaulted before her death. She had been killed by two unknown individuals. Now let's look at this from the police's perspective. A woman walks into their office and points to a remote area, claiming to have received a vision of the missing woman's body. A few hours later, they find the body in that exact location. Naturally, detectives suspected she might be involved in the crime. They detained and interrogated her for several hours. Smith agreed to take a polygraph test, and the results showed that she was truthful in her account of the vision. Still, the police remained cautious. They suspected that she may have known something about the crime, perhaps overhearing details from someone involved, or that she was somehow connected to the case. The police considered two possibilities. Either Smith was directly involved in the abduction and death of Melanie, or she had indirect knowledge of the crime. If she had heard the details from someone else, it might explain her vision. However, Smith firmly denied any connection to the crime, insisting that it was the vision that led her to the body. The police, while suspicious, had no solid evidence against her, so they continued their investigation into the murder. The breakthrough came 4 days later when an informant came forward with critical information. A young man had been bragging to his friends that he and his associates had killed a woman and gotten away with it. The police tracked him down and brought him in for questioning. Despite a lack of concrete evidence, they used a standard interrogation technique. They confronted him with a fabricated story, suggesting they had enough evidence to convict him unless he confessed and implicated his accomplices. This tactic worked. The young man admitted to the crime and named his two accomplices, Lewis Morgan, Spencer Nelson, and a 17-year-old minor. The two other suspects were arrested and interrogated. Both men admitted their involvement, providing details about the murder that only the real perpetrators could have known. They described how they had killed Melanie during a robbery gone wrong. It appeared that the murder had been committed by the three young men for fun and financial gain. Given the brutal nature of the crime, the police suspected that racial tensions may have played a role in choosing Melanie as their victim, though the details of their motive remain unclear. The three criminals were sentenced to life in prison, and the case appeared to be solved. But the story didn't end there. The police investigated Smith's role in all of this. Despite the confessions of the killers, the authorities found no evidence linking Smith to the crime. She had no connection to the suspects, and there was no reason to believe she was involved. As a result, the charges against her were dropped, and she was released from custody. 7 years later, in 1987, Smith decided to sue the police for the wrongful arrest. She was awarded $26,000 in compensation. Her lawyer had originally sought $250,000, but the judge deemed the amount excessive for the brief period of detention. Years later, Hollywood considered turning this story into a movie or series. However, it has yet to be produced, and it's uncertain if it ever will be. Now, the key question remains, was Smith truly able to find Melanie's body through extrasensory perception, or was it simply a coincidence? As mentioned earlier, many psychics claim to help in police investigations, but most of their visions are inaccurate and unhelpful. Some cases, like the disappearance of Christine Smart, have been assisted by psychics, but these attempts rarely lead to real breakthroughs. In this case, Smith stands out because she seemed to have no prior knowledge of the crime and did not ask for any money for her help. Her actions seem to suggest a remarkable stroke of luck, as she accurately pointed to an area where the body was found. It's possible that she had guessed based on logical reasoning. For example, she may have considered a canyon to be an ideal location for criminals to dispose of a body. What do you think? Was this a genuine vision, or was it just a lucky guess? Why do thousands of other cases involving psychics often go unsolved? Could Smith's case be an exception, or was it merely a coincidence? Thank you for watching.